Yeah, so I just figured I'd hop right into this because it'd be nice for you to, I guess you can kind of introduce yourself on who you are. That way there's some credibility behind what you're talking about. And then just kind of talk about what you're building and what the heck a locator is. I know what a locator is because, I work in the utility district for the most part as a lineman. So, we're working with power underground. So, every time we got to set a pole or whatever the case may be, we got to call a locator in to come locate all the utilities in the ground. But for those out there that don't know what a locator does and how they get started, so if you just want to kind of explain that aspect of it as well.
Absolutely, I can. Are we recording right now?
Yeah, I'm just rolling with it. I just try to do like a discussion kind of type of thing and just natural
Cool.
flow.
Yeah, for sure. So when you call 811, they you okay. So before you dig, you're supposed to call 811, and when you do, they have a public locator come mark public utilities. But then there's private utilities that are not marked by 811's locators. Well, 811 doesn't have locators, but yeah. So the public locator does only marks public utilities. The private utilities are electric, septic, irrigation, and any utility past the meter, because the public locators only mark to the from the main to the meter, and so that's where I come in, and I mark all those utilities to avoid damage. I don't know. It sounded redundant. Sorry, man.
Oh no,
Can
no,
I start over?
you're fine, dude. So if you could just explain, what people when you say from the deal to the meter and then past the meter, what do you mean by that? So that's
Oh,
private, right? So like a residential
right.
house. So if you're gonna dig in your backyard, you got to call 811, and then you'll come out and you locate any utilities that they might have in their backyard. Correct?
Right. And the meter is usually attached to the side of the house. And there are services that are attached to that meter as well. The services are private and the meter is public. But sometimes you'll have the meter in front of the house, next to the road, or behind the house on a telephone pole, or anywhere in the yard. So it can vary between locations, and so that could qualify a private locator to come out. If the meter is on a telephone pole, for example, then the public locator will only mark to the meter. And if there's a service going to your house from that pole, they're not going to mark that. Septic as well. Septic is very important because nobody will mark the septic utilities except for a private locator. And if you hit that, you have danger of leaking sewage into your ground, which contaminates the ground, and that's a very serious health hazard.
Yeah, exactly. So from my perspective, working on power lines and when we got to set a pole or do something, dig a hole, we have would be public locators come out, correct?
Right.
So the utility that I work on the contractor side of things. So like right now, I'm down in Arizona, so I'd do contracting work on APS property, and APS they would have a locator come out and locate, utilities under the ground for us to dig a hole, essentially. So I didn't, I guess, realize that there's two different aspects or two different sectors there between you have public and then you have the private. So which is easier, do you think? Or I guess if you're able to do private, can you do either or? Like, can you work for a company as a public locator or as a private locator? Do companies have both sectors, or how does that work?
Some companies have their own in-house locators. So like the public locate, like for example, SI Energy is like Centerpoint. They own their own utilities. So they have their own in-house locators that mark everything they need to be marked for their contractors. But USIC, for example, is only public, so they only mark the public utilities.
Okay, that makes sense. Right. So, yeah, I think from my experience, I've seen like these utilities, these power utilities, they don't necessarily really have their own in-house locators. They'll hire, essentially a contractor company out to do it. So if you want to, I guess, how how do I become a locator? Kind of talk about how I would get started in doing it, and then the opportunities that can arise from getting into becoming a locator.
Well, you could apply to the many companies that are out there. Excuse me. You can apply to the many companies that are out there. There's USIC and plenty of them. But I actually am starting a school to teach people how to locate utilities, and it's going to be virtual as well as in person, and it's going to be NOCA certified, and that would really help somebody to learn how to do this stuff before they apply, and it would help them to be look better to the managers. And besides that, honestly, like I think the perfect range for ages is about 18 to 20 for a public locator starting off. You can be older, that's not a problem, but like the greatest age to start is that time because by the time you have 10 years of experience, you're almost 30 years old and you have as much experience as a 40 or 50-year-old man. So, or a woman, whatever, but you have a lot of experience by the time you're 30 years old if you start off in the beginning. And 5 years down the line, let's say you can make probably, I don't know, 90, 100 grand in 5 years. It's just starting off. It's not a lot, I guess, when you're first starting off, but after 10 years, you're at least making at least what, 175 grand a year,
Yeah, yeah, and
hopefully.
that not to mention that's no college degree, no debt. That's right out of high school.
Yeah.
The other thing too that I was thinking about is okay, that's also experience. So let's say you become a locator, right? Because you're like, oh, it seems interesting to me. So you become a locator. You work as a locator. Let's say you started, you're 18 or 19. You work as a locator for 5, 6 years. You're 25, and you're like, you've seen all the different utilities working. You see the water guys, you see the linemen, you see electricians, and you're like, man, like linemen, I see them, quite a few. How do that really interests me? How do I look into that? So then you start on a path to want to become a lineman, and you see them, so you talk to them, you ask them questions, and then it just opens up more opportunities for you in that aspect as well. Just gives you a different, wider, variety of okay, what's out there, and you're able to see
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. And with that too, there's definitely different branches. You can go from being a locator to a lineman, and that would help the lineman as well because they always need locators. And if you have that utility knowledge, that helps you in your lineman work. But
Hmm.
then there's subsurface utility engineers who actually install utilities, and you go from being a locator to that as well. And you need college degrees for certain things. Like if you're going to design utilities, how they're laid out, you have to have a college degree
Right.
or you have to know somebody and, learn from them. But like a college degree really would help in that area. But like there's so many different branches you can go from being a locator. And there's some people that just like locating. Like I like locating. If I could do it for the rest of my life and retire, that's what I want to do. And that's kind of my plan. But like there's a lot of different options that you can do from this beginning employment.
Yeah, so you mentioned earlier about getting NOCA certified. Can you explain exactly what that is and what that means?
Yeah, NOCA represents, it means National Utility Locators Contractors of America. So we're like, it's like NUCA. Have you ever heard of NUCA?
I've heard of it. I'm not familiar, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, that's the National Utility Contractors of America. They're the ones digging. NOCA is the locator side, so we're the ones locating it. So it's basically like being OSHA certified for locating.
I gotcha. Okay, so yeah, that would definitely be a good certification to have in your belt. And
Yeah,
so if someone once your program is built, someone goes through it. You said what is it? Is it a 2 day program or how?
I believe it's going to be a 3-day program.
Okay.
They're going to have about 6 hours in a classroom setting. And the first day, the second day, another 6 hours, and then the third day they're going to be out in the field, passing their field tests. And then once the field test is done, they get their certification.
Okay. Yeah. So that just opens up a nice variety. If you go through the core, you go through the program, and then you see that okay, actually being a locator is actually interests me, and then you'll be NOCA certified, and then what do you just start looking for jobs? Like where would you search for a locator job exactly? I mean, you just go on Indeed and just type in locator, like
Yeah, exactly. You type in utility locator, and Indeed, LinkedIn, Google, Craigslist. I found my first job on Craigslist, and that's how
really,
I started locating. Yeah, but that's how one of these companies, I won't say who, but that's how they were doing it. They were doing Craigslist ads. But I also am working with at least three different companies who will accept my graduates. I'm not saying they're gonna like hire them right out, but they
right,
give them a chance to look at their interview. They give a chance to look at their resume, and if your resume looks good and you have good grades with my classes, then it makes you look better.
right. So for anyone that, let's say you are 18, 19, or 30, 35, and you're like, oh, that'd be interesting to become a locator. Is there any like specific training or education that would help, or do you need beforehand before you go through like your program or getting into a locator trade? Or that would help, I guess you'd
Just a
say.
bunch of Yeah, it would help to have a construction background because you're used to working hard in construction. And not that other industries don't work hard, but construction's special, and that's what
Yeah.
I'll say.
Yeah.
But does help to have a construction background. If you don't have a construction background at all, it doesn't matter because they'll teach you everything you need to know. And the most thing you're doing is walking around anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm going to teach the people how to use their machines. The company's going to teach the people how to use their machines. So that's two types of training that they're going to get. They're going to get my training and then in-house training. And then it just takes experience. You're literally walking around just looking at the readings off the machines. And it's not as simple as I'm explaining it, but it's not as hard as it seems either.
Right. So, um, yeah, that's exactly it. And the way I look at it when it comes to just skilled trades and basic in the blue collar world, if you at least just have some common sense and you can work hard and then you're able to actually learn, you can progress yourself and learn. Those are like just three key ingredients, really. I mean, a lot of us in the trades, the whole reason we're in the trades is because we don't we know how to read and write. We just don't like to read and write. So like
Yeah.
so I mean, as long as you're able to just learn and work hard and adapt and overcome things, then that's really all there's to it. So I think that's a fairly important thing. And I was going to ask you also, so you kind of, when we're messaging on LinkedIn, or I've seen on your LinkedIn, is kind of what do you expect as like the job growth as a locator? Like right now, is is there a massive need for locators, and do you see that in the future as well?
There's absolutely a massive need for locators. Across the nation, we have 10,000 jobs available at least. And it's constantly going to be like that because the locator industry and this is like, well, within the industry, the locators are very niche, like it's a very special job. So not everybody knows about it. But then the people that do, I feel this like there's a lot of good locators. I've met a lot of good employees, but then there's, of course, like in every industry, bad locators,
Mm-hmm.
bad people that not bad people, people that shouldn't be in that position, let's say. So they don't respect the job. They don't take the responsibility seriously. They're just messing around. They sit in their truck and just, for hours they'll be on their phone instead of like focusing on their jobs. And I believe that it's the type of people they hire. You know what I mean? The companies. They're desperate. They can't really get anybody quality here. And there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of quality people. So that's not who I'm talking about. But there's some people that we just need to get a better quality of employee, and that's it. Somebody who actually cares about the job.
So that's also kind of where you can come into as well with your program. If you build your brand, your reputation, that you produce, someone that comes out of your 3 day program, and company
Absolutely.
hires them, and it's like, oh yeah, like the guy that went through Harrison's program, that guy's a solid locator. He's a good dude. Because I will say, from my experience, as working in the utility world as a lineman, we get a locator come out and he's locating stuff because we got to dig a hole to put a pole in the ground. And then he just like, oh yeah, there's water 3 feet that way or whatever. And it's like, okay, cool. So we're clear. So we start digging and it's like, what the heck? Like there's clearly something right there in the ground, right where we got to put the hole. And it's like that he just did
Yeah.
a terrible job. Like he just kind of came out, did his thing. Oh yeah, there's some water, and then just like left. And then we're in a bind because now we're 3 feet in the hole, and then there's utilities right there where the pole needs to go. So it's like,
Well, that could be something else too, because several different locators handle different utilities. In Houston alone, let's say Sugarland, let's say, right? Sugarland has three different companies that come out there. USIC handles the communications and all that stuff. ULS, which is United Locating Services, they handle the gas and the electric. And then InTouch handles their InTouch fiber stuff. And
okay,
so, like, one locator isn't going to take care of everything. One locator is going to take care of what they have. You may have had a locator miss something or somebody not come out and mark their stuff.
I got you. Okay, so that kind of answers my question as well. Is so you have locators for obviously the different utilities as well. So like for you, I'm not saying for you example, but just as an example, you would could be a locator for only the the telephone in the ground. And then
Right,
there'd be another locator company comes out and they locate the this, and then another locator locates this. Okay, that makes
right.
sense. I did.
And it
I
depends
thought
on the
locators
area.
would locate everything, all the utilities in the ground at the same time, but I'm wrong on that one.
Yeah, and a lot of people think that, like, oh, one locator is going to come out and do this, and how even homeowners are like, well, I already had somebody come out like three times, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm a different company. I don't have anything to do with those people.
That makes perfect sense. So you're saying, um, as far as you're saying there's 10,000 locator jobs. I mean, is that like overall like 10,000 like across the board for locators, or is there like specifically like
Yeah.
we need 8,000 here in the telephone, underground part, and then water, and then power, and then the other utilities as well, or is that just like as a whole?
It's across the board with every company. I mean, even in construction, you're seeing like a lack of employees, but that's across every industry. You know what I mean? With locating, we do like USIC alone hires like 10,000 people a year, and they always have openings, but they have like a lot of jobs across the country, not just them. ULS, USIC, Stake Center. These are three companies that I'm possibly working with. So that they let me know about what's going on.
Okay, yeah. No, no, that makes perfect sense. So I was gonna ask, so once you become certified essentially as a locator, then let's just say I was in Texas, but then I become a certified locator, and then I want to move to Arizona, and I'm still good across the board, across the state lines, right? Because it's that certification's a national certification. It's not specific
Yeah,
to Texas.
absolutely. And if you move, your company's going to help you move. If you work with USIC, they're a national company.
Yeah.
So if you move to a different job where it's waiting on you. If you work with a smaller company, they could be in another state, but they might not be. So it just depends on what you're doing. But my certification, it is national, so it doesn't matter where you go.
Interesting. Okay. So, and I kind of want to just get into because this is kind of the more interesting part about it is like kind of hours can you expect to work, like what kind of schedule can you expect. You've touched on the money you could make, starting out and whatnot, like things that. That's kind of the bread and butter of like especially 18, 19 year olds. They're like, oh, they find out about the locator trade. Well, they only really care about one thing for the most part. I know I did when I got into lineman trade. I was 19, 20, and I was like, yeah, these guys make great money. Of course, I want to do it. But then there's other aspects to it as well. The benefits and retirement and all that side of the things too. But yeah, what kind of hours, what kind of schedule do locators probably typically work? Obviously, it probably depends on what company you're working for and where you're working. But from your experience,
Right. Well, from my experience, bigger companies will have you work from sun up to sundown sometimes, but I mean, it's only in the busy seasons. And when it's not so busy, when it's like normal throughout the year, you can expect from like 7:30 to 8 o'clock start time to maybe 4:30, 5 o'clock end time. So like a normal time. Plus, you have to drive, but they give you a cell phone, they give you a laptop, they give you a truck, and you have a gas card. So you don't pay for anything, and you're just riding around on company's time. So, like I said, bigger companies will work you more hours. Smaller companies won't work you as much. But the weekends are needed a lot for a certain company, and then the rest of the companies don't like to work that many weekends.
okay, that
And I
makes
say a
sense.
certain company, but I can't tell you who it is.
No, yeah, no, that's no issue. So I mean, as far as too is like overtime because obviously, um, for linemen, it's like power goes out, whatever the deal is. There's a broken pole. There's this or that. You got to get a
Yeah.
locator to come out, right, and locate if there's things right there where we got to put a hole in the ground or we got to dig or something. We can't just start digging, obviously. So I mean, that'll be at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. I mean, is I don't really know how it is for you. I've just noticed that because I'm from Washington, but I live in Arizona now. But that was kind of common too that we'd be working in the night and then we'd have to have the locator come out and things like that.
Right. I forgot about on call. That's what it's called. These emergencies that you're talking about, we have a locator that it has the phone all week, and so they'll get these calls late at night or in the middle of the night or beginning of the morning or whatever, and it can happen at any time,
Yeah,
and they have to answer it.
yeah. So essentially, like one of the, I mean, obviously it's probably specific per area, you would say, but that like one employee would have like essentially a duty week. So like they're
Right.
on duty that week, they have the phone, and then the next week a different employee has it, and it just kind of revolves. Or
It's like it's different for different people. You have a week of it, but it could be every 6 months or it could be every 2 weeks or
okay,
whatever. Depends on the size of the company and the team that you're in.
that makes sense. Yeah, because there's I worked for a company up in Washington who they as a lineman we'd have like duty weeks. So like each crew would have duty weeks, and but there we had like 6 or 7 crews inside that yard. So like obviously we'd be on duty week, and then 6 or 7 weeks later we'd be on duty week again. But it's the same as that concept as well. So yeah, so if you wanna, I guess for anyone out there, your program, you're obviously located in Texas, and you said, I guess you said you'd be able to do it virtually, but the thing is with that, I mean, you're gonna have the third day is gonna be infield testing and things like that. But for anyone, let's say you're not obviously in Texas, you're in Washington, would how would you recommend them, getting started? Would you have them looking to see if there's a NUCAS certification in Washington to get certified for that and then apply for locator jobs? Or how would you kind of explain for someone to get started in that way?
I say virtually. There are ways to get it done virtually without the field test, but that involves more information and in more in-depth training. So it would involve like videos showing what showing the field test, so they could
Mm-hmm.
understand it at least, and then they could take tests based off of the videos.
I got you. No, that's interesting, and I'm glad I was able to talk to you about it because I learned a few things, and then hopefully someone who watches this or comes across this information, they'd be like, oh yeah, this is a good gateway. I don't know what I want to do out of high school. Or maybe a parent sees this. I mean,
Absolutely.
that way
I mean,
they have a at least somewhat of an opportunity. Sounds like a pretty good opportunity and fairly easy one, in the realm of things to get into and start learning and just building a career from, graduating high school. So that's cool.
Yeah, that was my thing too. When I was like in high school, I didn't know what to do. And I even like, even now, if you told me, here's $100,000, go to college, I'd be like, what am I going to do? I guess I'll get a business degree because that's what everybody does because
Mm-hmm.
nobody really knows what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I love this stuff. And if I would have known about this from the beginning, I would have been 18 doing this. And then I'm 32 now, 28, 14 years in the industry. By the time you're 32, man, you're looking at like 75,000. You're a manager of a region, probably,
Yeah.
maybe a district. Like district or regional managers, they really get taken care of. You have to work hard in the beginning because that's what anybody has to do. But you move up. With progress comes time. With time comes experience.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think my probably my favorite aspect of just getting into locator trade at a very young age is just the experience you get as far as just seeing other utilities. Like I was saying earlier, your electricians, your water guys, your linemen, things like that, and it just
Yeah,
opens up another broad spectrum of, okay, I didn't realize that trade existed. I wonder about that trade, and then you can start quizzing yourself and figuring out, okay, maybe that's something I want to pursue. That looks really fun and cool. Start asking questions and learning
yeah.
about it. So it opens up a lot of opportunity. That's what I like about it. That's it's a cool aspect of it that I really thought of.
I will say this too. There's a lot of guys who respond well, and these guys are like soldiers or veterans. So this is a good job for a veteran as well, because especially ones, honestly, like maybe if you have PTSD or something, you really can't handle too much. Like let's say a lineman's job is very dangerous,
Yeah.
and a veteran wants to come out and do something physical. If you can't handle certain things, come be a utility locator. You'll be in people's backyards. You'll be in like the ditches of the street and stuff. And I've had a lot of veterans tell me that, oh, I like the utility locating because it's investigating. I'm like an investigator, so I have to work out stuff in my brain, and it keeps me busy and all that.
That's a very good point. Yeah, it's kind of like a puzzle in a way of just like you got to put pieces together, figuring out that's a very true point right there for sure. Yeah, that's the other thing I like to try to do is I'm glad you brought that up is for veterans, because a lot of the times that veterans or guys come out of the military, they're just like, I'm not really sure what they do. So a lot of them, they do go to school and just get a business degree or something because they're trying to figure out what to
Yeah,
do. But they just spent, 4, 6, 8 years, how much time in the military, with leadership roles, with just being, in complex situations. And then, yeah, PTS, whatever they go through and things like that. But they thrive in an environment where it's outdoors. They're having to put pieces together, try to figure things out, where they have someone telling them what to do. There's a pecking order. Um, so that's really cool. And I was kind of curious too. Is there kind of like a brotherhood with the locators as well? Like you guys kind of stick together, have like you guys' own little deal. I mean, like for us as linemen, of
yeah,
course we have a brotherhood that's pretty strong. But like, is it like that for locators as well?
yeah. It is. That is absolutely right. If you go to Facebook and you go to the cable vine, you're gonna find a bunch of utility locators all talking about what linemen talk about, probably.
Yeah, yeah. That's another thing too. I'm sure like on those Facebook pages and things like that, the guys are probably helping each other out. Like, hey, like this place is hiring. There's jobs here. Come look at this or
Yeah,
things like that
absolutely.
as well.
Yeah, they do that. Even with questions like I had a question. One of my machines started messing up the other day, and I had to post a question in the cable vine, and they helped me out. Like I had 15 or 20 people tell me how to fix my problem.
Yeah.
So it's a place of resource as well. New locators can ask questions. If you need a job, you can get a job out there. And old locators can ask questions or whatever. If you need something, you have a resource there.
Perfect. Yeah, that's kind of we have it too. That I'm on part of a few Facebook lineman pages or groups, and it's the same exact way. You got a question, the brotherhood is gonna answer the question, and then you're gonna have an answer. So that is a very nice aspect of that as well. So yeah, dude. Once that program is built, obviously just let me know, send it over. I love what you're doing with it, so I'll support it in the best way I can. To get guys into it sounds like an awesome opportunity for people. So I'm all about wanting to spread awareness and help educate people on different blue collar opportunities, and this sounds like a really good one. So
Thanks. I appreciate your help.
yeah, you bet. All right, dude. Well, that'll be that for that, and I'll let you get back after your day. Thanks for chatting.
Thanks for your time, sir.
Yeah, see you later.